Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Built Environment Marketing Show, hosted by me, Ayo Abbas from Abbas Marketing. Today, my guest is the amazing Andy Matthews, who is the co-founder of an architectural firm called Roach Matthews. I first met Andy a few years back when his practice was starting out, and he was a panelist on one of our Build Up networking events. He was really impressive, particularly in the kind of strategic way that he approached marketing and BD, even as a small firm just starting out. And it's something they've carried through, which is great to hear. I'll put a link to that episode in the show notes so you can watch it as well. It's a really useful kind of episode to kind of catch up on. Anyway, back to today. It was great to catch up with Andy just to see how his practice has evolved over the past 2 years and what systems and processes he's got in place now. I'll stop talking so you can get on with listening. Enjoy the episode. Bye. Hi, Andy. Thanks so much for coming onto the show. Can you introduce yourself and your role at Roach Matthews?
Morning. Thanks for having me. Yes, I'm Andy. I'm one half of Roach Matthews, and we're a small studio founded around 2 years ago, and we're now a team of 5, which is great. We've grown since last April in response to some of the work we've been doing. So we're currently working on extensions, refurbishments to private homes, workspaces, community spaces, retail fit-outs, and lots of other interesting things.
And you're an architectural practice, right?
We are, yes, yeah. We also work a 4-day week for no loss in pay, and we're working towards our B Corp certification. So we're trying to do things differently.
Okay, well, actually, my first thing is, so how come you've decided to do things differently?
Oh, that's a good question. I think, well, we've both had experience in the industry and working for quite a long time in there. Yeah. And I've actually been thinking about a presentation to do with a 4-day week recently. And one of the things, I don't know if you're a Kubrick fan, but in Space Odyssey 2001, it's almost like the idea of architectural practice is kind of, the monkey bashing the tool against the rock. But the way that we practice our architecture is on spaceships flying around, arguing with computers. So, it feels like there's disjoint between these two things where, our work and incredibly progressive in what we do. I guess we're on a mission to try and improve the other bit, the actual machinery behind the scenes.
But that's amazing values. And I guess it shows what your ethos is like, isn't it? So it makes you stand out, doesn't it? I mean, does that help you in your marketing? Have it been so, I guess, open about your values and what you believe?
I think so, yeah. I mean, we started with this very loose idea of good things for good people. So the idea being that you want to work with people who want to work with you, and you shouldn't waste your energy on those who kind of fight you and so on. And that's not a naive kind of way of thinking, but ultimately there's clients who appreciate and value your values and very much want to work with you. And when those align, then that's a good working relationship. So I think, to come back to your point, when you start a practice, you don't really have much to show. So, we're only just starting to publish our first built projects.
Wow.
There's some other little bits and bobs that come. But it takes time for that. So there's a bit of a marketing void there, isn't there? I think so. So what do you do? Well, you can talk about the process, you can talk about your values, you can talk about your people, and then that becomes a bit more of a blend as you go forward, I think. And
you can talk about cycling, which is something that I know you did a lot.
Yes.
But cycling's huge in the kind of in the industry, isn't it? There is a whole kind of group community.
It's the new golf in a way, but yeah. I mean, to touch on that point, we did at one point have 75% of our leads came from cycling. So we track all those things. But I think there's something quite interesting about cycling in that, all these networking events where we've been to, and we stand awkwardly with a Peroni, gazing into each other's eyes and hoping that it ends soon.
I feel really uncomfortable. Let me just neck everything back. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. But I think the thing that's quite nice about cycling is that you don't have that direct visual eye contact. You cycle next to each other.
Yeah.
You go on a bit of a journey together, and actually most of the camaraderie and the kind of friendships basically they're built there then can turn into work relationships afterwards. It's just another means of finding people who you get on with, really, I think.
It's a much nicer way of networking. It's interesting because the other week I went to a women in construction event, and it wasn't about drinking like it normally is. It was literally, we had afternoon tea. So it's like a room full of women just having great conversations, over 5 tables. And it was just really nice. And it wasn't about booze. It was, you know,
Was it sat down as well?
It was at Fortnum and Masons. It was beautiful.
Oh, okay. Very posh.
Not just afternoon tea. It was gorgeous.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was probably sat down with amazing cakes. I'll show you pictures. But it was it had a different energy, like to what you'd normally go to, and you felt really comfortable.
That's good. I think there's so many awkward events, and I think not understanding what networking is when you start out is quite interesting. You kind of always look for the clients, but actually it's just about talking to people, isn't it? And
yeah,
it's quite hard to track that return, but you just, more people you talk to and the more people you engage with, you know, the better it is. But
yeah,
the cold conversations are the hardest, aren't they?
Yeah, they are definitely the hardest. And they're the hardest to kind of get you from A to B in terms of working relationship, because you're starting from so far away. And I think any kind of things you can do to fast track that and make both sides feel more comfortable is better. So actually going back to 2 years ago when you were starting out, how did you win those first projects? What did you do?
Well, we stopped saying no. So, you know, we turned down lots of opportunities over the years, and we simply stopped saying no is part one of the process. And then, you know, we're both very busy with work. I was also doing architectural photography part-time, so very little capacity to do that outside of it. But I think most importantly, telling people that you want work and actually dropping into every conversation, hey, we've set up a practice, you know, and the more you do that and the more confident you feel about it, it's not like, hey, I want some work from you, but it's just, hey, you know, we're looking for some work, you know, and actually being quite specific about it, I think really helped actually.
Did you specify the types of work, or was it literally, hi, we were looking for some work, do you know anyone? Or was it more like, we're looking for this type of work?
I'd love to say that we were very driven and had a really clear elevator pitch about it.
That's what I'm asking.
I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid I can't. I think it was more just a kind of, we set up a practice, we're looking for stuff, and then, you know, it turns into a conversation rather than a kind of one-way babble, perhaps.
Okay.
But people were quite receptive to that. And then what we found is that people became almost ambassadors for us and would then go on and ask their network to kind of, you know, then send opportunities through to us that way. So I think that was kind of it, really.
But I guess you've planted the seed, haven't you? You've planted the seed in their head. Actually, when something does come up, they're like, oh, actually, I do know someone who's doing that, and they'll be great.
Exactly, yeah.
So I think
there's a bit of an assumption that you're too busy to do stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So if you don't say that you're actually looking for work, then I think people can assume from your social media presence, oh, these guys have got so much stuff going on that, you know, they can't possibly take anything more. But, you know, that might not be the case.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And was there anything else you did in terms of starting out? So you kind of did the word of mouth, we're here, we're taking on work, we're not saying no, come to us. Anything else that really kind of helped you to get going?
I think it's just going and talking to people. There's no secret about it, but I think it's just personal relationships, going to talk to people, showing them PDF portfolio, coffees, breakfasts, lunches, dinners, whatever, just any way of kind of engaging with people, or organising bike rides, or any way of just kind of talking to people about what we did, or doing or hope to do, really. I could say it was really strategic, but unfortunately, I think it's just, you're forming your ideas and your values as you go, aren't you?
Absolutely.
So I think, you know, you're learning as you go.
And also I think, you know, like saying stuff out loud, that really does start to solidify. I think, you know, when you hear your own words, and it's like, is that true? Do I believe this? And it starts to evolve as well, doesn't it? And also you get more comfortable in certain things.
Absolutely.
So I think you're right. It's saying it out loud. This is a real thing, you know. And how did you find kind of having to do the kind of marketing and BD side? Was it something you're comfortable with, or did you find it a bit alien to you? Or
I find it okay, and you know, I guess I find it easier, but it's still hard. You know, it still has moments of awkwardness and promoting oneself and being so direct about that kind of can be a bit icky. But you know, you work through those issues. I've had a business coach or professional mentor to help me kind of get a bit more comfortable with that, and actually it's. We also had some really good advice from Martin and you and I, actually, who really helped us refine our pitch and gave us some really brutal advice, which was brilliant. And it's gone a lot better since then, really. But it's also asking for feedback as well. So if you're pitching to somebody or just showing stuff to somebody who's probably not going to give you work directly, it's like, well, you know, how do you think that? Do you think that's the right kind of message? And actually engaging them in the process rather than just blurbing at them and then paying the bill and go.
Yeah, it's better to ask questions as well, isn't it? You don't want to be the only person talking in the room. I think that's such a thing, isn't it? Listening. Actually, you do learn a lot.
2 ears, 1 mouth, isn't it? And use them in that priority.
Yeah, I know. It's hard. I don't know. So in terms of kind of BD, I know when I've spoken to you previously, you built like this amazing database when you were starting out, didn't you? And you started doing things. Am I lying?
No, not at all.
You are the systems and processes man, aren't you? So what kind of stuff did you do? What did you do for the kind of BD side to kind of get yourself going and structured? So you were out networking, talking to people, word of mouth.
We have a bit of a kind of a goal in terms of that we'll put systems in place correctly from day one, and that's all sorts of other kind of things. But one of the things that I've talked to you about is obviously our CRM, customer relationship management system, which sounds awful, very corporate, but ultimately it does two things. It tracks contacts, so contacts and our network is our lifeblood essentially. So how do we engage with them? Who gets a Christmas card? When we get to it, who gets a get on the email mailing list and so on. Then we also track leads through there as well. So, a conversation turns into a lead, it gets a number, and then it goes to a pipeline tracker. And sometimes it dies, and we track why it's died and also where it's come from and so on. So the idea being that you can focus your attention on the right efforts to get the work in. So, if nothing's come from Instagram, okay, keep Instagram going, for instance, but it's not a core part of your pipeline at this stage. You know what I mean? So it's relatively scientific in some ways.
It helps focus your attention and your mind, right? Because then you can actually look back and go, where did this work come from? What is working?
Yeah. And more importantly, not forget that a lead is there that probably just needs tickling on a little bit and might take 18 months to bring in.
Yeah, that's true.
But, don't forget about it. I was like, oh God, I've just remembered that, avoid that stuff.
It's easier though, isn't it? Because you can actually send yourself a reminder that says, contact this person now. Okay. And that takes
set all those things in the system, and also if somebody else is looking at that contact, they can see there's an existing relationship and conversation there, and that not to interrupt that or start again from fresh and so on. And
in terms of, I guess, which channels, marketing channels, are there particular ones that are working for you quite well in terms of your kind of BD and you getting out and winning work?
Instagram is good, but I think the problem with Instagram at the moment is that it wants you to do reels, to please the algorithm. We just don't have the capacity to format all the stuff in the right way for them. Sometimes we'll have a go, and they've been popular. I think we had some interesting structural stuff going on the site, and I made a reel, and it was, the algorithm loved it.
But you didn't love it.
Well, it took a couple of hours to put it together, and and that's probably not the best use of my time. But I think LinkedIn is probably one of the key ones for us, and that's most responsive when we've reshared something on our personal account from the business account. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So and some really, really quite a lot of engagement, and that's what it's there. And actually, a couple of times people will follow up via WhatsApp and start a separate conversation out of that.
Fantastic! That's really great. That is a proper conversation.
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn does feel like it's turning to Facebook a bit, but I think if you keep it, professional and actually talking about, and people are genuinely interested in what you're doing and how you're solving challenges, and we're all trying to do those things. Really,
I always class LinkedIn as the kind of platform for business, and that's kind of what it is. It is, but you're right, it has got a bit Facebooky, but I think they've just literally made another algorithm change, which is going to supposedly make it less Facebooky.
Right. Okay,
but what is interesting, I know that you were a big Twitter user.
Yeah.
How do you find Twitter these days?
I mean, we don't really get much reach on it. I don't think it's something I really want to invest in at the moment. I mean, we do cross post to it, but I think it's in a difficult place at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But previously you did use it a lot, because I remember I used to follow you there. But
yeah, I mean, personally, I still use it, but more to find information, I think, and I find lots of things like, I don't know, straw bale construction or some stats on housing market or this, that and the other. Some really interesting people posting there. And occasionally we'll post a kind of completed picture or something, but I don't feel like it's our primary concern.
No.
I mean, one thing that does work well for us is a kind of offline thing, which is, I mentioned earlier, sending a Christmas card. A physical Christmas card to people, reminding people you're there, with a nice picture with a silly Christmas hat photoshopped on and some snow actually works quite well, because actually, it's like middle of January, February, people then start getting in touch saying, oh, thanks for the Christmas card and really appreciate it.
Wow.
Especially if it's late.
Because of January, is that the way? Happy Christmas! Especially with our postal system as well.
It takes a long time to do, and we cut it a bit fine this year. So I sent one to Portugal, which arrived before many of the ones in London, which, it's just...
Hi, it's Ayo here, and I just wanted to tell you a bit more about the show. The Built Environment Marketing Show was set up during Lockdown 1 as a way to help firms do better marketing. It was very much about having the conversations that I have with my friends and showing what best practice really is. In terms of me, well, I'm actually a generalist marketeer, so I guess I know lots of things about marketing and how to put everything together. So I could be talking about, PR, or understanding what to do next strategy-wise, or figuring out how to get in front of the right audience or what messaging you should be using. Those are all things that I'm kind of really skilled in and understand how to do for my clients. I now work for myself, and I set up my own consultancy at Abbas Marketing in 2020. And I'm working with a range of engineering and architectural firms, and even PropTech firms, who really want to, talk the language of their clients and their audiences and do something a bit different in terms of their strategy and content. If what I do sounds of interest to you, do email me at ayo@abbasmarketing.com, and that's AYO, or head to my website, which is www.abbasmarketing.com for more info. There's also a link in the show notes. Bye. Is there any advice you would give to a practice looking to get started now? I guess you started 2 years ago and you kind of went out. Is there any advice you'd go, these are the types of things you should be doing from day one? Is there anything you've learned?
I think in terms of marketing, I think don't ignore it. Unfortunately, you have to do it. And if you're not very good at it yourself, try and plug someone in who is. Talk to people. Yeah. Conversations are what make people want to give you work, and they're buying into you as an individual often, as well as the company and the values behind that. And I think that one of the trickiest things is trying to find the balance between social media, posting all the time and reminding people you're there, but doing something interesting and not just posting for the sake of it. See what I mean? So having content. I mean, we're meant to have a content plan. I haven't got around to that, but it's still a little bit ad hoc, but space posts out, don't put them all in one kind of
huge long thing. Yeah exactly.
Be human, I think, is probably the key thing. I think a lot of people just cover themselves up in this very professional wrapper, and they don't actually get to that human aspect, which people do actually really engage with. Maybe have other channels for that. I think 2 more points maybe is that just in terms of social media, I think it's not just a one-way thing. You need to engage with people and talk to people. And if someone's put a heart eyes emoji on your thing, the least you can do is like it and reply back with a, wavy hands emoji. But do you know what I mean? It's not just a one-way thing, but and comment on other people's things and celebrate other people's work as well.
It's about engaging, really, isn't it? And I think the more you put in terms of engagement, because I often say to people, you could literally start on LinkedIn and not post anything, but just engage with people. You still start having those conversations. You don't even need to post. Yeah.
And I think the last thing is just that everything is an opportunity. You can turn almost every conversation into an opportunity.
Yeah, and not feel icky.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I think when that, it could be an opportunity to help somebody else out who then helps you out, if you see what I mean. So it's not just about what can they give you, but
vice versa.
The conversation is about engaging with them, getting in. And I don't know, we go on to show people how a CRM works.
Well, that's the thing. It's like when you said that in that build-up event, I was really like, lots of people don't have that. It doesn't need to be a hugely complex system. It could be Monday or Asana. You know what I mean? It's like, but just having something to track that. And I think,
you've cracked how to use Zero in a different way. I don't know, but it's some skill that you can share, which then people will reciprocate.
Totally. Okay, so moving on to, you've been in kind of business now for 2 years. How has your marketing evolved? I know you did a comms crit recently with Rob and Luke and Bobby, didn't you?
That's right, yeah. I think it seemed like a really good way of getting a bit of assessment where we are. and that involved an hour phone call, Zoom call with them, and then a report, I think about a week later. And actually, it was quite complimentary in places, actually, which is quite nice. So, you know, I hadn't made a complete mess of it.
No, you haven't.
But also made a very, very clear, direct summary of where we needed to focus our attention and what we needed to sort out, which is invaluable, really. And on the back of that, we've since appointed Bobby and Luke on a retainer basis to help us with various other things. So the process of just talking out loud with them was also just really helpful. A bit like therapy, maybe. We've been trying to do this. Have we been doing the right thing?
You're like, we know we need to go this way. It's like, yeah.
Exactly. And I think the other part of that was that it showed just how much there is to do, really. And it sometimes feels like a full-time job in itself, keeping on top of it. So plugging someone in to help you and guide with that is really, really helpful.
And they'll have systems and processes to help you fast track getting there. And I think it's just knowing how to, tackle all of it. Because there is a lot you can do in marketing. There really is. Yeah.
I mean, it's not our core competency. So, you know, it's probably sensible that we plug somebody else in whose it is, really.
Yeah.
And even just writing a press release is a dark art that I don't quite fully understand. But, you know, we provide them all the information. They've done a brilliant job of sending it out. So. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But also they do have connections as well, and I think it's also they'll have connections into who to sell it into and how and what journalists need. Yeah, and I think it's that kind of thing. Yeah, I don't really cover the side because it's never been my bag, but yeah, I do think it's worthwhile. And
I think the other part of that is we've probably become a bit more confident kind of standing behind our values, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So actually, when you start out, you talk about all these things, you talk about what you want to do, but then later in that process, you've kind of done a bit more of it and it feels a bit more authentic and you can actually stand a bit taller with your shoulders not quite so slouched and say, yeah, this is us and this is who we are. And actually, we do stand behind these values and we're actually doing it.
Well, exactly. And there's actually doing it. It's like, yes, we are doing a 4-day week and we've been doing it since then. And this is and you can prove it as well. And I think once you've got that, it's easier just to kind of go, this is who we are. And it's not just some weird kind of, they're just doing it for publicity purposes. It's like, no, we are actually doing it. I think that does help. I guess it's like growing up, isn't it?
I think, I mean, it's a bit like greenwashing, isn't it? You can say all you want online, but ultimately you have to deliver against it.
Exactly.
And we've set ourselves some quite high values to then stand behind.
And so, so how would you define success for your kind of marketing and business development? What's successful to you?
Ooh, interesting. I think in the short term, it's probably engagement. If we're talking about marketing, likes, comments, conversations that come out of the back of that. Something that's always stuck with me is something about Jenny Montgomery, who talked about, I think it was going to some trade fair or something, but leading the conversation and actually knowing what the conversation you're leading on and then following up with people and taking that conversation further offline. You see what I mean? I think that's quite a successful thing to translate those likes and heart emojis into.
Offline conversations, I think it's definitely the way.
Yeah, I think so. And then that marketing then turns into business development, I think. And understanding the difference between the two, maybe. But those people do see a lot, and they're very aware of what you do and what you put out, and they're quite quick to link into what you've seen before. Excuse the pun. But does it
surprise you, though?
They will pick up and say.
Does it surprise you? When you meet people and they're like, "How was your bike ride to blah blah blah?" And you're like, "Huh."
Yeah, a bit actually. Because
I'm like, huh?
I think, I mean, I think what's really nice is that people have a genuine interest in what we're doing.
Yeah, they do.
Other than our mothers, it's moved beyond that, and it's started as friends and family, but that network has grown to kind of various people who are genuinely quite interested in what we're doing and our success.
Fantastic. So, final question. So what tip or advice would you give to a practice starting out now if they're about to just go for global architectural domination?
Ooh,
maybe not quite that big, but you know what I mean.
Maybe, yeah. I think it's a journey. It's a journey, and there's a phrase my girlfriend's used, which for architects especially is that don't always look for the light at the end of the tunnel. Enjoy the tunnel.
That's so true.
And actually enjoy the process. We talked about all the time we're solving a different challenge. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think it's also important to look back and see what challenges you've actually solved, because you're always moving forward. I think one thing is quite important, is to kind of try and define and update your vision. And we don't have a very detailed business plan, although we do have one.
Yeah.
But I think the vision is what we stand behind the most, and that helps us judge opportunities. Do they align with the values? Is this strategic in terms of where we want to be? And I think that changes as you do more things, really. And I think another thing is, don't be modest about your work, because there's this kind of tortured artist syndrome of architects. Like, we won't say too much about this, but celebrate it. Like, hey, we had a great time here. We just had a brilliant meeting. Look at these lovely drawings, or look at this cat walking over the drawings, or something. I don't know, but it's about celebrating, I think, everything that you do, and I think showing joy in the process as much as the final photos, because if you're just showing the final photos, then
it's a missed opportunity.
95%.
But also, I think the other thing is, lots of people don't understand what an architect does, and that's half the issue. And that's where the value is being eroded. And it's like, actually, let's share what an architect does.
Absolutely, yeah. And we're very clear about where we add value, and counter to that as well, we're clear where we don't. So we plug in other experts, for copywriting, photography, marketing, brand, graphics, surveys, all sorts of other things. But, where do we add value? Really focus on that. And I think focusing on those core competencies and having others to support you is probably one of the best tips I would give. Fantastic.
Thanks so much for today, Andy. You've been a great guest. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to the Built Environment Marketing Show. Don't forget to check out the show notes, which will have useful links and resources connected to this episode. You can find that on abbasmarketing.com. And of course, if you like the show, please do share it with others on social, as it helps more people to find us. See you soon.